Well, it wouldn't solve our problem because remember, solar power solves the electricity problem. We're trying to solve the oil problem. So I like how you're thinking about it, but it's not helping me yet. So the electric vehicle is a great, cute thing, and maybe some of you have them. There's certainly a lot of really neat ones in the United States. We have a company called Tesla that makes really fast ones. And I think that the electric vehicle plays a role in this. But again, to the point of, is it the solution? The answer is no. If you look at annual production of lithium in 2010, it was 0.03 million metric tons. If you ask the question, what would it require to put 10% of the vehicles as electrics, how much lithium would we have to get out of the ground? The answer is about 80 times more than we've pulled out of the ground ever. I actually asked Dave to do this analysis. I said, Dave, go back to the USGS survey, the US Geological Survey, and look at every single mineral that's ever been pulled out of the ground in the history of civilization, as long as we've kept records, and demonstrate for me that for at least one of them, we have a history of doing this. Is there a way to say that there's a precedent to increase production of any metal or any element that much over a relatively short period of time? And the answer was no, not even close. Independent of the economics of it, it's simply not possible to scale up that quickly. I mean, I think it's possible. It turns out, though not on this slide, there are other places where we're discovering a lot of lithium. Some people actually believe that Afghanistan is going to be the Saudi Arabia of lithium. There is enormous potential for that. The problem is lithium is only one component that's necessary to make an electric vehicle. There are a lot of other rare earth elements that are necessary, and most of those we have a pretty good handle on. It turns out that China contains 91% of the world's rare earth elements. And I know that people are already pretty uncomfortable from an energy security standpoint about the fact that OPEC controls a third of the world's oil. I just wonder if they'd be concerned that China would control 90% of the world's rare earth elements. So I think there are a lot of issues, but that's a valid point. That we don't, what you're basically saying, sir, I think is there's still things we don't know. I think that's fair. I mean, I've done this analysis, and I don't recall the number off the top of my head, but it's a lot more than we can do. Well, not only is a lot more, it's not even that we couldn't generate that much nuclear energy or do so economically in a viable way. There aren't enough materials in the world to build that many electric vehicles, and the cost of that infrastructure. Let's just put a couple things in perspective. So the worldwide infrastructure for producing, refining, and using oil is $60 trillion. 60 trillion. We would have, no. We would have to spend more than 2x that to provide a charging station for everyone to have an electric vehicle at half the density of cars we have today. Again, the point is here, let's build the electric cars. There's some markets where they make sense. There's some where they don't. It comes back to this theme. We actually need every one of these things to work. Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I think it's another fair point to say when folks, like I'm doing right now, speak about the reserves of these things, we speak with tremendous uncertainty because the reserves of lithium and rare earth elements are not as well understood or well studied as that of oil, something we can speak about with much more consequence. But you raise another very important point, and this is something that might be interesting for discussion should we have time, because I get asked this question a lot, which is, what should the US's response be from a policy standpoint to that of China? Or how does the US differ in its approach to energy, or how does, in 2030 versus that of what China's doing today? And I think you raise an interesting point, which is there's an environmental consciousness, there's a strategic way of thinking about things that differs between these countries. Not here to pass judgment and say which one is better than the other. I have my views, but these are both very good points.